Hello everyone, it's Spacious again. Welcome to another model review video, and this time we've got the Corgi Original Omnibus Company OOC AEC Q, the double deck version. They also did a single deck version, but I'll review that separately because it is obviously a completely separate model, and as soon as I get a suitable one to review I will do that. As I said, today we're going to look at the double decker. So the Q Type was a revolutionary double decker introduced by AEC in the 1930s. It was designed by G.J. Rackham, and it had been inspired by USA practice. It had the engine on the offside in the middle, sort of there where that grill is on the model, and it was kind of, on some of them it was under the staircase, some had a central entrance and it was underneath the staircase. This one obviously has got a front entrance, so it wasn't, but yeah, it was on the side across to the offside there. And the idea of that was they could have a lower floor than was standard at the time. It was quite revolutionary. The drive from the engine went to the back wheels along the offside of the chassis, and that meant you could only have single rear wheels rather than the double ones that buses normally had. So there were 4 variations of the Q Type produced. The one we've got is the 2-axle double decker. There were 23 of those built between 1932 and 1936. The prototype was 1932. The production vehicles came between 1933 and 1936. Wikipedia does say there were 32 of them. Bus lists on the web says 23, so I think somebody's got the numbers mixed up on Wikipedia. I'd rather believe bus lists on the web because of course they have a listing of all the ones produced, and I've counted them individually and there are 23 of them. The second variation was a 3-axle double decker. Only one of those was built for London Transport, and as far as I know nobody's done a model of it. There was a trolleybus double decker as well, electrically powered. 5 of those were built, so it wasn't very successful. The more successful of them was the single decker, which again I'll review separately because Corgi have produced a model of that as well. And there were 336 of those. That was helped by the fact that London Transport standardised on it for a while, and they bought 238 of the production. But as I said, the one we've got, the 2-axle double decker, just sold 23 over a 4-year period. So the Corgi Original Omnibus Company model sold many more vehicles than AEC managed with the real one. It was first produced in November 2001. It was produced through to April of 2008, and in that time 13 releases were issued, and then the casting, as many Corgi ones were, was passed on to Atlas Editions, who did another one, a Cardiff Corporation version, in January of 2011. The one we've got is catalogue number OM45709. That was released in January of 2003. 2,300 of them were produced, and it's in delivery of Bolton Corporation Transport. Bolton Corporation ran trams from 1899 to 1947. In 1904 they introduced the first motor buses. They were the first in the northwest to run motor buses, and they continued to run motor buses until 1969. When on the 1st of November 1969 they became part of Selneck Passenger Transport Executive, South East Lancashire and North East Cheshire. They also owned 4 trolleybuses for a while, although they didn't actually operate them as such. South Lancashire Transport ran a route from Bolton to Leigh, and initially when they converted from trams to trolleybuses, the short workings in Bolton were still covered by tramcars. In 1936 they were converted to trolleybus operation, and as part of the agreement Bolton Corporation agreed to pay the interests and working costs on 4 of the trolleybuses used, and they became the property of Bolton Corporation Transport in 1944, and they owned them until they were withdrawn in 1956. So they didn't actually operate the trolleybuses. South Lancashire operated them, but they did own 4. So they owned the 3 types of transport. Basically you'd find them: tram, trolleybus and motorbus. The vehicle modelled, the AEC Q, is registration WH4850, fleet number 2, and it was new in 1933. It was sold in 1939. It only had a short career, as many Qs did. Most operators only bought one of them, and then they became non-standard. Obviously needed their own spare parts and things, so they all tended to have a fairly short life. It wasn't the most successful design, hence why it didn't sell more. The engine, although it was innovatively positioned, it tended to overheat. The cooling system wasn't really up to having a mid-engined bus back in the 1930s basically, so the engine tended to overheat quite a lot. They did tend to skid when manoeuvring as well because of the single rear wheels. They weren't as stable on the road, particularly on like wet cobbles and surfaces like that were quite common at the time they were in operation. And there was also a very early example of health and safety fears because, as you can see, This one and a lot of the ones produced had a front door, and there was a concern, well, should I say front doorway, it didn't actually have a door on it. There was no door fitted, and there was a concern if somebody fell out they'd just go under the front wheel. Normally the buses at that time were rear entrance, so if somebody fell out of the open back platform they just fell behind the bus and they weren't run over by the bus. But there was a concern if they fell over on this one and fell out, that they would go under the front wheels. So all that together, plus, as I say, the fact that they were usually unique in the fleet and therefore needed their own spare parts, meant they had a short life. And this one was withdrawn in 1939 after just 6 years. It was sold to an independent operator apparently, but history doesn't seem to have recorded which independent and whereabouts. But that is the history of the rail bus. So what we'll do is we'll have a look around the model. Now, obviously you can see it here, first impressions, it looks like an AEC Q Type. And I'm saying that from second-hand evidence because I've never actually seen a rail one. As far as I know, there's a couple of the single-deckers preserved, but there are no double-deckers preserved as far as I'm aware, and I've never seen one in real life. They were all long scraps before I was born. So I've seen pictures of them and it looks like the pictures, and that's the best I can say to you. So starting as always with the front end, the front dome looks very good. The sort of narrow look of them is captured quite perfectly. The front windows are good as well. You've got the glazing bars just printed on there, but looking pretty decent anyway. Panel lines are moulded and cast in. The destination panel appears to be a separate fitting, which is strange because the destination plan is just printed on. It's not as if it's a one way, it's behind glazing or anything. It's just printed on, but anyway, it looks decent enough. On Route 10 to Crompton Way, the Bolton Corporation crest above there. Waste rail looks pretty good. The windscreen looks nice as well, and you've got the again the divider there moulded in. The window, I believe, would open. The top part of it would open to give the driver some ventilation. The wipers as well are separate fittings stuck on, so they look very, very good indeed. And they capture the somewhat minimalistic atmosphere of the 1930s buses. I mean, you can see they're not exactly the longest wipers. The driver would be looking through a little slot when they were going, basically. But that was the 1930s. Side lights are cast on. They stick out from the casting as they should do, and the lower front looks very good. The headlights there. AEC badge printed on, fleet number and registration number all printed, and this little panel here cast in. And you've got the lifeguard underneath the front, which is a lovely feature. It does bend down a bit. I don't know if it should do or not, or if this has been damaged. Obviously, it's a second-hand model that I've bought, but that looks really nice. And look at this handrail as well, a separately fitted item. Very, very nice indeed. Looking really, really good. Round to the near side, the doorway modelled as it should be with no door. They didn't have doors, they just had an open doorway. Handrail a little bit loose there, but so I'll try not to knock it too much more. Again, you've got a lifeguard rail underneath, sort of twisted up. I think it should be a bit like that, sloping up towards the back. The wheels look very nice. And again, the windows, general impression of it, panel lines in, windows, the glazing bars printed on again, but again looking pretty decent. Very, very nice indeed. You've got a filler cap there cast in. Another little inspection hole type thing there. The rear dome, the shape of it is captured very, very nicely, and you've got the signature feature of the Q, the fact that this really short rear overhang. They didn't have much of an overhang, and that's, again, really well modelled. Some lovely detail in there. It all looks very nice indeed. Go around to the back. Again, the dome is lovely. The emergency exit window looks nice. You've got a little bit of a rain strip above it. And then again, the panel lines cast in. The emergency exit was in the centre of the back as it is on here. And again, that looks nice. The glazing is good and flush. And you've got a little recess where the handle would be to open it. Backlight printed on, looking pretty decent. Registration plate printed as well, and the fleet number. Round to the offside. Again, the windows and the panel lines look nice. So do the wheels, overhang modelled, and lifeguard rail. But look at this little cover for the engine with the grills on it and things, and the little sort of gap in there. That looks really, really nice indeed. Very, very nice. Lovely bit of modelling, and full credit to Corgi for doing that. As you can see, the staircase had a window that was opaque, and that's modelled as well. And the driver's signalling window is there. Again, just printed on, but it looks pretty reasonable. It does have a mirror, which I didn't mention as well on the offside. I believe they only had one mirror. A lot of vehicles didn't have a near side mirror at this time. and this one hasn't. It doesn't appear to have a fixing for it, so I think that's how it should be. Presumably the logic was that passengers might bang their head on it as they got in and out as well, if it had one. So yeah, doing the driver's mirror, it is crushed in slightly, but it does mean that you can't knock it and break it off, although I'm not going to give it a go. But yeah, it looks very nice. It's very diminutive. It didn't have many driving aids back in the early 1930s. It was kind of a, motoring in the raw, shall we say. The roof looks nice. You've got the panel lines there, some vents up at the back there as well. That all looks good. And then going underneath, main chassis framework is there. You've got the exhaust system and a representation of the underside of the engine underneath the middle, as it should be, and that drive shaft going to the back wheel, hence why they could only have single back wheels. And again, that looks very, very nice. Interior is good. There is some different colours. You can see some of it's moulded in brown. The seats are red, and the floor looks to be cream there. Certainly the step is. And it's nice to see a bit of relief colour. It does mean that you don't have to take it apart if you don't want. And I always say on these reviews, benefit from being taken apart and painted. But in this case, it probably wouldn't. There's enough relief in the colours there to mean that you could just leave it together, and it looks very, very nice. The seats may be a little bit chunky, as they often were in OOC models. But yeah, all in all, very good, and it looks a very nice model indeed. Pleased to have finally picked one up. I'm not sure what the plan for this model is. It was basically bought to do a review of. I'm trying to work my way through all the vehicles that have been released over the years, and I saw this one for sale at a bus garage open day, so I thought, well, I'll pick that one up. So this was £6. We're coming to the price now. I paid £6 for this one from a stall, as I say, at a bus garage open day. And if you're picking one up at a toy and train fair or a rally or something like that, that's about your starting rate, £5–6, somewhere around there. Had a look on eBay for the purposes of the video. I'm doing this in mid-July 2025. Cheapest one I could find was £5.91 plus £2.94 postage and packing, so £8.85 all in, and that was the Bolton one, the one that we're reviewing. And the most expensive was £44.99 plus £5.40 postage and packing, so £50.39 all in, and that was the Corgi Cardiff one. More on that in a moment. The Atlas Editions version, the Cardiff one, ranged between £5 plus £3.35, so £8.35 to £14.99. So Atlas, as usual, a little bit cheaper. I looked on the Liz Keith website as well, the model shop in Eastbourne. The Cardiff one, the Atlas, they had for £7. And then they had a range of the other ones. Cheapest was the Bolton one, again £7. And you go through London Transport country area in green livery, that was £8. A couple of London Transport red ones for £8.50 and £9. Again, I'm guessing the £8.50 one was in slightly worse condition, because they're all second hand at these prices. You had the Cardiff one, the Corgi Cardiff one at £8.50. Now, bearing in mind that that's the same model that was £44.99 on eBay. You can get one at £8.50 at Liz Keith. So, I mean, it's up to you if you want to pay £45, but I'd rather pay £8.50 for it, to be honest. So it does benefit you to shop around sometimes. And I just found the most expensive ones at Liz Keith had were the Hull and a London Transport red special edition one, both of which were £11. As always, Liz Keith, postage on top, about £4 I believe. So the Atlas one would be £11, as would the cheapest Corgi one, and the most expensive Corgi ones would be £15. So that's about your price from Liz Keith. Definitely worth getting if you want a bit of an unusual model. As I said, they're not very expensive to buy. You can barely get a pint for £6 nowadays, let alone a model bus. So it's a very, very nice investment of a modest sum, really, to get another bus into the collection. I'm not sure, as I say, what the plan is for it. I might just display it, to be fair. It is a lovely little model. But it's well worth getting, an unusual prototype. As I say, I will review the single deck model at some point when I get one. And I'll put a link in the description to this video if I think on when I've done it. But for now, as always, thank you for watching, take care, and I will see you soon. Bye. Bye for now.